Welcome everyone to this exciting second edition of the Bullet and Dove panel hosted by Worldwide WCA. My name is Margaret LoWilla. I'm a consultant on the Bullet and Dove initiative, and I'm so glad to have all of you here today. Some are joining us through Zoom, while others are joining us through Facebook Live. To each one of you, a very warm welcome. Our theme today is No More Silence, Intergenerational Action Towards Peace. Our panelists will be sharing their lived experiences of navigating conflict in Nigeria, DRC, and South Sudan. Please feel free to use the chat box in Zoom and comments in Facebook to send your greetings and let us know where in the world you're joining us from. We welcome questions in both Zoom and Facebook. We'll try as much as possible and as time allows us to respond to them. Kindly note, this panel will be conducted in English. For those joining us on Zoom, Spanish and French interpretations will be available throughout the event. Whenever you need interpretation, please click on the language you would like to hear on the interpretation icon on the bottom of the screen. If you're on your phone, the option will be available when you click More. If you understand English, feel free to leave your interpretation off. However, at some point, our panelists from DRC will be speaking in French, at which point you can access the English translation by clicking on the interpretation icon. Kindly note that this event is meant to be for an hour, and before we start, allow me to share a few housekeeping rules. Please note that this session is part of the Bullet and Dove panels by Worldwide WCA. By joining the session, everyone who will have the opportunity to speak consents to their image and audio being broadcast. By participating in the panel, you have agreed to behave professionally, respectfully, and be culturally sensitive towards other people. To promote the principles of diversity and inclusion, and to refrain from abusive behavior of any kind that leads to any harm, prejudice, discrimination, or harassment against any person. We encourage viewers to adhere to these principles and be respectful and sensitive to everyone's cultural realities, experience, and expression. We recognize that freedom of expression is important, but we emphasize the principles to treat all other people with dignity and respect at all times. If you do not adhere to these principles, you will be removed from the panel, as Worldwide WCA does not accept abusive behavior of any kind. At this point, I would like to issue a trigger warning. This panel discussion includes real-life stories and accounts of violence and sexual violence. This may be disturbing and triggering to some. As this is a sensitive topic, we would like to maintain this as a safe space. I humbly request that we maintain an atmosphere of compassion and mutual respect. To kick us off, I would like to introduce a video by Tari, a young social activist from South Africa who uses spoken word to highlight the issue of gender-based violence and femicide in South Africa. Victoria, please play the video.
Hi guys, my name is Tari. I am a slam poet and social activist from Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm 19 years old and one of the contributing authors in the book, A Time Like No Other. Thank you very much for having me at your event and allowing me the opportunity to open it up for you. I'm very excited about this book. It is a wonderful collection of women's stories and real life experiences that I think are so inspiring and empowering to read. And I'm very humbled to have been featured and super excited to share that with you guys here today. I wrote Audition Tape to My Funeral, which is the poem that is featured in the book, during a very difficult time in South Africa. As a community, we really went through a very dark period in terms of gender-based violence and the scourge in femicide that was happening across the country. Obviously, that's still a recurring problem and an ongoing problem. Gender-based violence is still a very prominent topic. But during this particular time, it was completely out of proportion. And I remember writing audition tape to my funeral just after I heard the story of Ywca, a university student who was stabbed and killed outside her residence at university. And I can remember feeling the same sadness and anger that I felt the previous year when we heard about Uyinene, another university student who was raped and murdered at a post office, also a varsity student. And I was feeling very helpless and very angry and sad, but in a way that I hadn't felt before necessarily. And I think Audition Tape to My Funeral really served as a way for me to let out these big emotions that I couldn't understand and couldn't articulate through speech. For me to get them out there and have my feelings, you know, put into words, really. And I think the biggest thing for me was trying to relate how we grieve for the people who are lost, you know, the victims of gender-based violence, but us who are left behind are also left with this fear of life, with having to confront these big realities as women, as girl children in this country. And I wanted to be able to express that in words. So that's where Audition Tape to My Funeral came from. And I'm going to read a couple of lines for you guys, just so you can see what the poem is about. But obviously the full thing can be seen in the book or on my YouTube and Instagram channels. There's 294 days left before I turn 19. 294 more days of waking up with the sun, of breathing in air before a man claims he's right to my life or he's right to my body. 294 more days of being terrified to walk outside, of hugging my mother tight so when I'm gone she remembers the feel of my arms around me, of pausing at the door to wave goodbye to my dad. Half a see you later and half a goodbye forever, in case this is the last goodbye that I have. The last hug, the last kiss, the last time I get on the bus, the last time they see me as I am now, alive. I'm not sure if I'll make it to this time next year, or even if I'll make it to the end of this day, see like every other woman in this country, I'm living on borrowed time, waiting for my turn, for my big debut as victim number 1,000 and something. So here it is, the audition tape to my funeral. Was that good enough? Did I get the part, sir? Did I look victim enough? See, I was going for this murdered schoolgirl type of vibe, a closed casket type of silence, cold, like the autopsy of a dead body, cause of death, being woman and alive. Thank you.
That was Tari from South Africa. Her spoken word evokes so many emotions about the violence that women have to deal with. Now, I would like to give the floor to Worldwide WCA's General Secretary, Casey Harden, to provide a few remarks. Casey, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Margaret. Greetings to all of you on behalf of the global movement of the YWCA. The bulletin of this panel series, we really started to amplify the voice and leadership of girls, young women, and women. With these conversations, we really want to hear the witness from YWCA leaders and other women like Tari and Dr. Nontando. We hear this witness to historical and contemporary realities of conflict, war, and justice, which is such a ubiquitous and constant scourge of related gender-based violence. So I want to thank Ijeoma, Bibiche, Catherine for taking the time today. 3 of thousands of YWCA leaders that provide really sustained leadership in their community and hold themselves accountable to be relevant and responsive and to speak for but also with girls, young women, and women in community. It's really in the story and their witness that so many others are called to action. And many decide that instead of turning away from what can seem relentless and perpetual, we are instead compelled to turn to action, reject silence, and not give up on peace. So again, welcome to this discussion, and thank you for taking the time to be here, and especially thank you to the women today that are sharing your witness.
Now I would like to call Dr. Nontando, moderator for today. Dr. Nontando, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. What a privilege it is for me to be in the company of these phenomenal young women. The work that you are doing as YWCA in this Bulletin Dove is really cutting edge, and I just want to honor you and to honor the presence of all the leaders of YWCA as well as the audience. And whenever I hear Tari's poem, I just feel as if my whole body just reacts, and what a privilege it is, because I'm one of the editors of the book that she's quoting from. And so what a privilege. Whenever we hear about war and conflict, it's usually in a headline, the news flash, and suddenly we hear that there's war in Sudan, there's war, DRC, there's Boko Haram in Nigeria, and it just becomes this news that is bigger than life, and we don't really know. But what happens with stories is that we begin to go into the very core of what is happening. Our eyes, our hearts, our ears are open to that reality that is close to us through the flashy newsrooms. And so we have the privilege today of accompanying, of hearing from the ground, from people that are living in these regions, phenomenal women who will tell us the stories. And I ask that we listen in a way in which we connect with those stories. Because the reality for women, as Tari is saying, is that whether there is a war or there is no war, the war against the bodies of women is the same. It's just that the one that is happening in the war is exposed, whereas the day-to-day violations against women are not given the same kind of exposure. So we'll begin to see and enter into the realities of what these contexts reveal about what is actually happening in the lives of women, and also to realize that this is not an accident. When a soldier rapes a woman, it's not that suddenly he has become that. He's coming from a cultural context that has normalized the violence against women, and we'll discuss more on that. But right now, I want to open up the space for us to give to our panelists who will tell their stories, who will tell other women's stories, and for us to listen at all levels, listen through our own experience, allow ourselves to be touched, allow ourselves to enter into the story so that together we can sit around the fire as women to discuss, to talk, to interrogate what is happening to us in this world. So before I go on, I want to introduce the first speaker. And you must forgive me if I pronounce your name wrongly, but I will do my best, Ijeoma. And let me see, Yes, our first speaker is Ijeoma Nweke from Nigeria, who is a champion for youth and women's rights from Lagos, and who currently serves as the National General Secretary of the YWCA of Nigeria. So over to you. Yeah, please unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry.
And if I pronounced your name wrongly, please give everybody the right pronunciation.
Okay. That's okay. Thank you, Dr. Nontando. Ijeoma Nweke is my name. The National General Secretary for YWCA of Nigeria. I just want to appreciate Cassie. I appreciate you, our World General Secretary. I appreciate you. And thank you to Victoria, Danny, Margaret, Bibi, and every other speaker on this program. I just want to thank you all for this opportunity given to YWCA of Nigeria to also share our own story and amplify the problem on the ground. And this morning, we're actually going to speak and show a video on the issue of Boko Haram and the unrest and the problems it has caused, especially in the northern part of Nigeria. And it has been affecting women tremendously.
So Mama za ki gaya mana menene sunanki? Sunana John. Lami John. Okay. Mama ke kin zo daga ina ne?
And yes, and achieving the goals of ensuring
local government. Okay. Daga Maiduguri. Okay. Me ne yasa kun zo Jos?
Muka zo Jos saboda mun zo zama ne. Mun zo zama ne kuma shine abin da ya faru daga wajen mu can. Shine abubuwa da ya dan da rikice mana can. An kakkashe mana mutane ne. Su mazaje an kakkashe an bar mana mata da yara suna shan wahala sosai. An rumushe mana gidaje. Mata mu sun gudu, wani sun maza mu sun gudu, wani kuma ba su tsira ba. An kakkashe, an bar mana mata da yara. Shine suna fama da shi a can ba maza inda su Boko Haram din sun shiga. An shiga mana.
Okay. Yani Boko Haram sun fara damun garin ku?
To da suka fara damun garin mu din. So da suka shigo mu bai muna zama mu da ba mu sani yake tafiya.
copy this thing.
Daga wurin kenan sai muka ji mashin mutane biyar a kai. So sun fara kwashe waɗansu ma sun bar kayansu ba su iya doka ba daga sun fita tsirara haka sun fita sun fara kone wanda sun sa bom suka kone mutane mu da yawa da suka kakkashe su ba mu san yawancin nawa ne ba. So ta yamma ne na je gida sai wata system sun je gwana da mijinta sai na karɓi masara. So suka ce sai matan ta ce sai yar wani ta ce to mu gudu mu tafi fa mutanen sun shiga gari. Sai ya ce to bari a ɗinka sauran masara guda ɗaya rage. Yana gamawa kenan suka suna sun ba shi bindigar da sun yafa da suka sassare shi suka sassare shi. Shine yar wani ta fara yin kuka ce suka ce in kin kuka gara mutuwa mai gidanki ya fi mutuwanki. A lokacin kenan shine ta je gida ta je ta ɗauki kuskusun baro sai kwashe gawa mai gidan ya zo bisa da kanta. So sai daya pastor wanda ya yi mana addu'a kan cewa zan yi tafiya sai shi ya je gaisuwa a unguwa kamar haka. Sai yana fitowa kuma sai suka kashe shi. Wani ɗan uwan kuma ya fita wai zai je gaisuwa a unguwa kamar wannan to yana da kwasa aka kashe shi. To abinda suna can ɗin kenan suna kwakwaman su kwashe mana kayan abinci su kwashe mana matayenmu zuwa can. To aikin da suna yi kenan.
Suna so ki gaya mana kamar mata da yara mata.
Okay. We've seen the video, and there are certain issues the video points at, and that's the prevailing situation women and girls are passing through because of the Boko Haram insurgency in the northern part of the country. Incessant killings, the breadwinners were killed, the husbands of these women and young women were killed. There was loss of livelihood. Their farmlands, they had to leave it. They had to desert it. They had to run away to safer places, abandoning their farms, their means of livelihood, thereby widening the gap. Looking at the Sustainable Development Goal, goal number 1, that aims at putting an end to poverty. And goal number 2, that has to do with also ending hunger. It's a problem because their means of livelihood has been destroyed. Even the issue of promoting good nutrition was also hampered in the sense that the children were not fed rightly. They lived on what they were able to get or what they were able to find on their table. Poverty has always been a bedrock to so many issues happening in our world today. Because of poverty, they don't have a means of livelihood. It increases and widens the gap of that poverty within that home. They can't find food to eat. They can't feed their children. The issue of education, which is also the goal number 4 of the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goal, is also breached. Because when they don't have money, they are poor, they don't have money to send their children to schools. They don't have money to buy the textbooks and the books that their children need. It still falls back.
Sorry, Ijeoma, you've just got a minute left.
Okay, so in summary, the issue at hand, the Boko Haram issue, affects women and girls. The World Office, the World YWCA, has actually supported us. The COVID Crisis Response Fund that they supported us with, and were able to reach out to women and young girls, most of them who ran away from those communities that were being troubled by the Boko Haram insurgency. We were able to reach out to them, and then the girls as well, they were affected because they had to choose food over their sanitary pads. They had to choose. We were able, through that fund, to reach out to girls and supported them with sanitary pads in schools in Lagos here. So that is why we're also appealing that there should be support given to the World Office so that they'll be able to reach out to national societies that have issues affecting women and girls. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much for that deeply moving video, as well as the reflections. We will move on to our next panelist, Bibiche Kankolongo from the DRC. And once again, if I've mispronounced your name, please reintroduce yourself. She's serving as the National General Secretary of the YWC at the DRC. Thank you very much. Over to you. You have 6 to 7 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Nontando. Thank you to World YWCA for this opportunity. I'm so happy to be there. My name is Bibiche Kankolongo. In my language, we say Kankolongo. And I'm so happy to be a part of this panel, and so happy to share experience of my YWCA, but I feel more comfortable in French. That's why I will move to French, so you can change the language for interpretation. Comme je le disais tout à l'heure, je suis de la YWCA DRC et je suis aussi coordinatrice nationale du service civil pour la paix en RDC, qui travaille au niveau régional pour les questions de paix, aussi bien en RDC que dans d'autres pays comme le Cameroun, le Sierra Leone et Libéria. Alors, je voulais aujourd'hui partager notre expérience par rapport aux violences basées sur le genre. Ah oui, je dois faire des pauses. Sorry, je suis en train d'aller vite. Donc, je voulais dire ceci, calmement alors. Nous travaillons sur les violences depuis plusieurs années au Congo parce que nous sommes dans un pays qui est tout le temps confronté au conflit avec nos voisins, donc surtout dans la partie est de la RDC. Alors, avec ce problème de violence, nous avons été obligés de nous impliquer à tous les niveaux. Avec la guerre, les femmes et les enfants sont vraiment affectés, mais il faut dire que le pays tout entier a été impacté par la guerre sur tout le plan, donc social, économique et même politique, parce que la guerre a marqué l'histoire de notre pays. Et je ne sais pas si vous le savez, pendant une période, et d'ailleurs jusqu'à maintenant, on considère l'Est de la RDC, notamment la ville de Goma, comme la capitale du viol dans le monde. Donc, nous avons fait face à de sérieux problèmes comme pays avec la guerre. La guerre en RDC a plusieurs implications, notamment économiques, mais aussi des problèmes interethniques et tribaux qui sont au sein des populations. Nous allons prendre une petite vidéo qui parle de ce qui se passe à l'Est, l'histoire d'une femme qui a vécu en plein déplacement des violences sexuelles. Et la vidéo est poignante. Je nous invite à suivre cela et nous remercions Human Rights Watch pour cette vidéo qui décrit un peu la situation, qui nous plonge vraiment dans le contexte. Victor, s'il vous plaît, vous pourriez montrer la vidéo, s'il vous plaît.
I felt people grabbing my shoulders. They hit me on the head with the butt of their rifle. We started walking into the forest. There were other hostages. When we stopped along the way, they whipped us badly on our backsides. We were in so much pain that we could barely sit up. Then, they showed us human skulls and said that if our family didn't pay our ransom, we would die. One of them put his gun to my head and said that if I tried to move it, he would kill me. After that, he would do anything he wanted to me. When I dared to cry, he would hit me in the head. They raped us in the morning, during the day, and at night. They'd rape us next to the male hostages who had their feet and hands firmly tied. I dream about these scenes in my sleep. When I'm in the fields, I get scared thinking they're still coming to get me. My husband says that he's being laughed at everywhere because of what happened to me. He keeps saying that he'll just go away to Uganda and leave me here. So many women are victims of those gangs. We thought it was going to end, but it still goes on.
Ok, nous avons suivi la vidéo. Ça paraît être juste une image, non? Ça paraît être un dessin, mais c'est la réalité. C'est le tableau de ce qui se passe en RDC, surtout à l'Est, avec la guerre, les déplacements massifs des populations, les kidnappings, le viol, le vol au quotidien. Et les femmes et les filles font face à cela chaque jour de leur vie. Et il faut dire que c'est une situation difficile dans laquelle nous sommes obligés de vivre et de travailler. Mais on peut penser que ça se passe seulement à l'Est, mais à l'Ouest du Congo aussi, il y a d'autres formes de violence basées sur le genre. Et nous avons aussi eu des scènes de guerre ou des déplacements de population, notamment au Kasaï dernièrement, où il y a eu des échanges vraiment forts entre l'armée congolaise et des troupes rebelles. Donc, c'est-à-dire que la population est tout le temps obligée de bouger et les femmes sont violées. Et au niveau de Kinshasa, où je travaille au centre de la Ywca, nous recevons beaucoup de filles et de femmes qui font face aux violences basées sur le genre. Parce qu'il faut dire que l'image de la femme au Congo n'a pas vraiment beaucoup évolué. Parce que la femme, c'est encore quelqu'un qui n'a pas droit de dire ce qu'elle veut dans certains milieux. Et je partage ici l'histoire d'une jeune fille de 12 ans qui nous a été amenée au centre de la Ywca. Je l'ai reçue comme intervenante en psychothérapie et j'ai été marquée par le visage de cette fille qui me racontait son histoire. Elle a été violée par un monsieur qui avait plus de 50 ans et le monsieur était un voisin qui a attendu que les grands-pères de la fille puissent sortir et a violé la petite fille. La petite m'a seulement dit « Maman, je suis en train de me demander pourquoi il a fait ça. Je ne sais pas ce qu'il a fait. Je ne sais pas pourquoi il a fait, mais je sais seulement que c'était mal. J'ai été obligée d'arrêter l'école. J'ai été obligée de déménager. Aujourd'hui, dans le quartier, elle ne pouvait plus rester parce que tout le monde la regardait comme une fille qui est souillée. Alors, elle m'a dit, je me sens mal. Je voudrais finir en disant que quand une fille a subi un viol, une violence sexuelle, ça marque sa vie et ça fait que la vie n'est plus la même, quoi. Elle ne va pas continuer à faire les mêmes choses de la même manière. Et notre travail est d'autant plus pénible que des fois nous faisons face à certaines difficultés, un soutien pas très significatif de la part de notre gouvernement et des autorités, mais la situation mérite que nous puissions en parler. Donc, des panels comme ceux-ci sont vraiment importants où les femmes peuvent ouvrir la voix, parler à haute voix de ce à quoi elles font face. Celles qui sont violées à l'Est sont abandonnées par leur mari. Elles ont des fois des enfants non désirés. Il n'y a personne pour les aider. Elles doivent faire face à cela. D'où l'importance de parler et de communiquer au monde ce qui se passe pour des changements significatifs. Parce que si nous voulons vraiment une paix durable, nous devons mettre le paquet et nous engager tous. Alors, je pense que le problème est multidimensionnel. Il y a plusieurs aspects qui entrent en jeu, les aspects culturels, les aspects de nos traditions, les aspects même économiques et les crises comme la COVID-19 et d'autres maladies comme
Bibiche, you've got 1 minute to conclude.
Yes, I am concluding. Je suis
1
en train
minute to
de finir.
conclude.
Okay. Donc, nous sommes face à cela et nous devons nous impliquer tous pour qu'il y ait un changement. Donc, c'est pour moi vraiment l'occasion de demander à tout le monde de s'engager. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you. I think this has been just watching that video, and I think we've all been traumatized. Yeah, but we need to enter into the trauma of the reality of women's lives in solidarity and sit there and raise our voices. So thank you so much. Now we'll go to the last panelist from South Sudan, Catherine, Latto, Catherine, Fred, Tartisio, a proud mother based in Juba, working at the YWCA of South Sudan as a champion for sexual reproductive health and rights and a gender advisor. Over to you, Catherine. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nontando. And thank you so much, everybody else. Thank you for being here. I've already been introduced by Dr. Nontando, and she has just mentioned all my names correctly. I am Catherine, and I am so glad to be here today. And the story I'm about to share is my own story. It's my experience, and it's my experience with conflict. And I'm going to keep it as brief and short as possible. So, as I have already been introduced, I am a mother, a single mother of one, and I work with the YWCA of South Sudan currently. I major in championing sexual reproductive health activities. So I have been a victim of war before, of conflict. When the conflict broke out in 2016, I was living with my elder brother, and I've always been comfortable living with my sibling. So, and the area we stayed in is where like the armed groups actually were based. They took over the whole area. So they asked us to vacate the area. So as we were evacuating, it was difficult to go home to my dad because my dad stayed at a safer place, but it was difficult getting to his place because there was a point in the middle that divided us and the government troops, and there was no way we could get across. So we just had to run with everybody else who was running. And so before we knew it, in 3 days, we got where we actually hadn't imagined we would get there before. So it was very, very hard, these 3 days going without food, without water. And we stopped sometimes to spend the night in churches to find a shelter to accommodate us for the night. And so in the process of finding ourselves somewhere to rest and lay our heads for the night, I have actually come into contact with these groups who came into churches and started raping women and girls, even elderly women who were like grandmothers were raped. So they didn't leave no option for anybody. And people were shot dead in front of my own site. So it was a traumatizing time for me because we focused on being safe and then getting home. And the area from where we stayed and where my dad was, it was just about 5 to 7 minutes drive, but it took us 3 days to get back because it was hard to navigate the area, and we were walking, and with all these government and armed troops everywhere, it was hard to get through. So when we got through finally, I was now forced to stay with my stepmom because now my brother had no place. The place was demolished because of the conflict. So I had to stay with my stepmom. And we all know how stepmoms can be sometimes in the context of Africans. So my stepmom wasn't that kind, and that's why I always lived with my brother. So when I saw that it wasn't working for me at home and I couldn't go back to my brother where I felt comfortable, so I was like, the only way out of this is just, going into marriage. And so I considered, getting pregnant and moving out of home and just living with my husband, which I did. I thought it was a good idea. It would save me from whatever I was going through with my stepmom, and it was good the first few months, but later it became something else. I was facing a lot of violence in my own marriage. I was getting beaten all the time by my husband, and I couldn't do the things I wanted to do because of the fact that I am a girl and I am a woman. In an African context, you being a woman, you are supposed to behave a certain way. There is a certain way you're supposed to speak to others, you're supposed to take care of others, you're supposed to behave. There is a way, there's everything, these social cultural norms that we have in place provide that I don't do the things I want, but rather be a housewife and play the part and talk the part and move the part, everything. So it wasn't really that easy, And then one time I decided, a friend of mine introduced me to YWCA because YWCA had this program of the Let Girls Talk Initiative. The Let Girls Talk Initiative is a safe space within the YWCA that provides a space for young women and girls to come together and talk about issues that affect them. So it was the space that I needed. I always felt I wanted someone to talk to, someone who would understand me and not judge me, because I've talked to people about how I felt about what I was going through, but people would tell me, that's your husband and that's your house. You just have to endure and just do what he tells you to do, So, and then I decided to go with her to the Let Girls Talk Initiative meeting. And I actually felt comfortable there because I had people who had similar stories to mine. And so what we did was just be there and try to be there for each other. Sometimes when you share your story, somebody comes up and gives you a hug, makes you feel comfortable. And sometimes that's all it takes, and that's all you need to feel so much better. And when it happened with me, I actually felt so much better. And after that feeling, I never stopped going to YWCA Let Girls Talk Safe Space meetings, because that's where I felt home. That's where I felt home. So I never missed a chance. Every Friday when the meetings happened, I would take advantage of my husband not being around, and I would go there, because if he knew that I was going to this place, he would, beat me up for that. So
sorry to interrupt you. 1 more minute.
Yeah. So the bottom line of all of this is that I actually felt comfortable with YWCA, and YWCA empowered me and actually helped me to come out of this. So what I can say is that I am happier and a lot stronger than I was before, or than I thought. So those are the structures in which I wanted to lay out the whole story, whatever I went through with the conflict, with the marriage violence, and how I came out of it, or how my institution, YWCA, actually helped me come out of it. So thank you so much, Dr. Nontando, and thank you, everyone. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Catherine. And what a way to, to come, to end the panelists, just the discussion, affirming the power and the agency of women, that even when women are put in situations that should destroy them, what Catherine is shouting out to the world is that women have the power to rise up. Women can support each other to rise up. The sisters are doing it for themselves. We should be, the violence that we're experiencing should have destroyed us. But the fact that women are rising, women are helping each other, is a point that we need to be able to celebrate, even in the difficulties. So I'm just, because we've got just around 10 minutes left, I just want to again ask the panelists just a question or two. But firstly, before doing that, I just want to appreciate all of you, the work that you are doing, and also the stories, the heart-wrenching stories that were presented to us. And so we see that from South Africa, where there's peace and prosperity, women are violated, whether it's in the war of the DRC, the war of Sudan, the war of Boko Haram in Nigeria. We are seeing that in all places, there's a war on women's bodies. And we just need to ask the question. And I think Catherine and all of the panelists raised it, that if we have to trace, this is not an accident. This is something that is in our culture and in our religion. And I want us just to talk about some of the messages that young women and women hear throughout their lives, just giving examples from culture, from religion, from Christianity, where women are accused as being those that brought sin into the world. And even the way the creation stories are interpreted to justify the inferiority of women. And those things, those seeds that are planted are the ones that shape that soldier with a gun raping the woman, because he has been ingrained that this person called a woman is inferior, is brought into the world to be beaten, marginalized, and raped. So I want us just to share some cultural or even religious words that women hear that create this kind of world in which it's okay to rape a woman. So let's just try to give those examples from our context, whether it's religious or cultural. So I will just ask the panelists to unmute themselves and just to give some examples from the culture or from the religion of messages that women receive, and even messages that men receive that tell them that they are superior to women and they can beat women. So let's talk about those messages that you may even have heard yourself. So let's open that. Ijeoma, Bibiche, and Catherine, please feel free to just give us an example of those messages in your context.
Okay, I just want to say, looking at the patriarchal and the issues of colonialism, where it has to do with women and young girls, like in the Igbo culture, the eastern part of the country, where it said once a woman is married, you're married, and your father will be like, he has given out your room and you're not supposed to come back to that house again. So with this, the man feels superior over the woman, thinking that whatever he does to that woman, since she's not going to go back to her home, because it's going to be like a shameful something in her community, that she comes back home after being married. So these are the issues, and we need to dissociate ourselves from such, that we still have rights. Women have rights to say no to what is going wrong in their lives. And then, the issue of early marriage as well, and the fact that, oh, you are my child and I have to decide where you're going to marry to. You must get married at this age, like in the northern part of the country, looking at the Fulanis, that their daughters, they give them out in marriage. Some of them, like 30-something% of them, or thereabout, getting married before the age of 18 years, which is not supposed to be.
Yeah,
So,
no, thank you. Sorry to cut you. We have, I think, about 8 minutes left, but I think the point that you have made is really, taken and received. I'll just go to Latto just in a sentence or two. And if you can also, have your cameras on, and then Bibiche, so that we just give a sentence of the messages that women keep receiving.
Yes, in my context, in the context of South Sudan, it's really difficult how women are expected to behave a certain way. We have communities in which, like, if a girl gets her first period, and then we have some kind of symbols that are actually put on the gate of that particular house to show that we have a girl here who is ready for marriage. We have a bride who is up for marriage. So may all the suitors come and bid, and may the best winner take the girl, you know? It's that kind of life. And I remember about 2 months ago or 3, a girl was, you know, she was forced by her family to get married to a man who offered a lot of money to her family, and she didn't want him because he was 4 times her age. So when she said no, she was beaten by her brothers to death. Like to death. Why would you say no to somebody who is bringing so much wealth to the family? So she was beaten to death, and it was a big story, but nobody could do anything about it, you know? Nobody at all, because it's in their culture that you can be given to anybody who brings the most money or whatever, you know? So I think these are the things that we really need to look at, and we really need to take matters into our own hands. And it's about time that these things change for the better, you know? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I think that is already a violence that's inside the society. What would you say in a sentence, Bibiche, and then we will close?
It seems to be the same in DRC also about early marriage. That's why I will focus about some message coming from our religious leaders, because they say that men are chief of the family, so women can't have a voice in the family. So she should agree everything, and she's not able to express as a feeling or a perception of life. And when we add the economic situation of parents in my country, they need some money coming from men. That's why they decide to send girls to get married earlier. So I think war is an issue, but our culture and tradition and religion is help to hide violence in our community. So I think it's also important to make sure about message coming from our religious leaders, our political leaders, and also our father and mothers in family. And I think this picture will help us to give a good response to gender-based violence. Thank you.
No, excellent. Thank you for raising, all of you raised such important points. And just for, if you had to just say something to women and to encourage them to move forward, just in one sentence, what would you say? What do you think needs to happen? Yes, just one sentence, and then we'll close.
I will take the message coming from Dr. Mukwege. He talked about the fact that women have power. We are not only victims, but we can also be actors of the changements. The change will come when women will be so sure and have self-esteem and express about this situation. I think we are leaders, but we should help other women to become leaders so we can all together move and change mentality and conception about what we are. We are human beings as men, and we have many potentiality. So we can use it, be resilient. Even all situation, we can make decision and change the situation. I think it's a call to engagement of women as leaders and as also women in society, in religion, and every domain. We can do something. That's my message. We have the power to change.
Well said. One sentence from Ijeoma and one sentence from Catherine, and then we will wrap up. One sentence.
Okay, we need to get back to the drawing board and involvement, men's involvement in all of this issue. And then we have to start that by getting out to our government and the school curriculum to adapt it, that there should be messages of no violence to women and girls, and change the behavior. That's the behavioral change communication right from the primary school stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Catherine?
Yes, in a sentence, I think that, you know, the most important thing that women and young women need is empowerment. Empowerment is a very powerful gift that you can actually give to someone, more than money, more than anything, because when you empower them, they'll be able to make decisions for themselves, for a better tomorrow for themselves. They can be able to take matters into their own hands and change their lives for the better. I think that's important because it's what I was given and it's what brought me out of what I was going through. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I can see from the chat so many great comments from the participants. Sorry, we only have 1 minute. And I just want to give really a voice of appreciation to our panelists. They've been phenomenal. And to conclude by saying we need to take back everything. Let's take back the religion that has been used to oppress us. Let's take back those stories, those interpretations that have been used to marginalize women. Let's reconstruct that. Let's take back the men. Let's raise boys that love and respect women. Let's take back our cultures. Let's take back our politics and our economics. As women, we do have that power. And together, working together, we are able to shake. We're saying zero tolerance to the stories that we read, we heard, and we are saying going forward, we're taking back our power. So thank you, YWCA. Thank you, phenomenal panelists. And thank you to the participants. We are on our way to taking back everything.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Nontando.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, because together we can achieve.
Yes. Yes. Back to YWCA. I had to close it for us, Margaret.
Yeah, that was very, very powerful, Dr. Nontando. Thank you so much. And thank you to each and every single one of our panelists for being so honest and for being vulnerable and for sharing your wonderful stories with us. We hope that everyone takes the call to action to take back our religion and our culture and to transform it towards something that empowers more women and respects more women. And I hope this is, the start of many, many conversations that we can continue to have to ensure that we're making steps towards ending gender-based violence. So once again, thank you, Dr. Nontando, and thank you to everyone who has taken the time to join us today. Thank you, our panelists, once again, and I hope you will be joining us to have more of this conversation.